Looking back at the movie Titanic 25 years after its release. Hi there, I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English skills using current events and trending topics. JR is the producer, and he has uploaded today's full lesson to plainenglish.com/553. 25 years ago, I was there. I saw the movie Titanic in theaters when it was first released, and I saw it again last month when it was re-released into theaters. So on today's lesson, we'll take a look back at really one of the most popular movies of all time. In the second half of the lesson, I'll show you what it means to root for someone, and we have a song of the week. You have 3 guesses. No, you have 1 guess. You have 1 guess, and if you get it wrong, you were not paying attention when Titanic came out. All right, let's get going. It's one of the oldest love stories of all time. Boy meets girl, the boy is poor, the girl is rich. They can't be together for reasons of class, society, family, expectations. Their hearts pull them in one direction, but their families pull them in another. In this story, the reader, the viewer, or the listener is rooting for the young lovers to be together against all the pressure of society. It's also one of the most tragic events in the 20th century. The ultra-luxurious, unsinkable ship, the Titanic, sank into the frigid waters of the North Atlantic Ocean on the night of April 14th, 1912. It was a rebuke to the hubris of mankind, a reminder that forces of nature were then, and still are, more powerful than man's technological innovations. The movie came out on January 1st, 1998, 86 years after the Titanic sank and 400 years after Romeo and Juliet was written. Director James Cameron's innovation was to combine the classic love story with the arresting Titanic tragedy. The result was one of the best films of all time, and certainly one of the most successful. Prior to that time, no film had made $1 billion at the box office. Titanic made $1.8 billion, a record that stood for 12 years. It won 11 Oscars, just the second film in history to win that many. Later, a book about the making of Titanic was a bestseller. The first time a book about the making of a movie ever had that much success. But even this doesn't capture the cultural significance of the movie. The movie came out just as the age of the multiplex theater was really maturing in the United States. For most of the history of cinema, movie theaters were small places in the center of towns with 1, 2, or maybe 3 screens. But all that changed in the mid-1990s with the development of the multiplex theater. Big movie theaters with 10, 15, 20, or even 30 screens. The screens themselves were enormous. The sound was big. Even the snacks were huge. Going to the movies was a big event. And just when this was starting to get popular, Titanic came out and captured the imagination of moviegoers. It cemented the multiplex theater in the culture. It was also a showcase for the possibility of special effects. When modern special effects were first used, they created monsters or fiery explosions. Think of Independence Day and movies like that. The Terminator movies, for example, were a showcase for special effects, but they weren't believable in any way. Titanic combined innovative filming and set design with cutting-edge special effects. The result was, you believed it. You felt like you were watching people jump off a sinking ship. Titanic, the movie, was re-released in 2012, 2017 to coincide with the centennial of the sinking of the ship, and it was re-released again here in 2023. The film that's in theaters now is only in 3D. 3D is not my preferred way to see a movie. I would have liked the opportunity to see it remastered, but in a format close to the original. Some movies don't age well. The world changes too much for them to still be relevant years later. Not so for Titanic. There are lessons in the movie that are just as relevant today as then. Here's one I didn't notice the first time around. The businessmen, the marketers, the aristocrats, and the first-class passengers were the ones that called the Titanic an unsinkable ship. But the ship's architect told them it's made of iron and steel. It absolutely can sink. Does that remind you of anything? How about this or that crypto coin can't collapse or can't lose value? Another tension that feels just as relevant today as then, the struggle many people feel between taking the safe, expected route in life versus taking a risk and living a more freewheeling life. There are a lot of Jacks today, as then. I think a lot of us admire them from afar. It's a romantic notion to always be on the move, to never set down roots, but most of us are looking to build a life in between the extremes of Jack's total freedom and the stability of following in the footsteps of family members, which Rose's family wanted her to do. Titanic may still be in theaters, but if you missed it, that's okay. Find it on streaming and you'll get almost the full experience. If it's been a while, I recommend watching it again. It's the kind of movie you can watch every decade and experience it differently every time. And if you really do want to see it in theaters, don't worry, they'll probably re-release it again in a few years. I saw it when it came out. It was a sensation. It was a sensation in a way that a movie can't really be a sensation today. Now, yes, Avatar made more money, and there are movies that are a big deal today. Avatar 2, also directed by James Cameron, is a big deal today. But Titanic came out before people carried cell phones. I mean, they existed, but this was before they dominated our lives. This was before streaming. This was before video gaming became so popular. So a big movie had the opportunity to just capture the imagination of the whole culture in a way that movies really can't anymore. And I tried to find the date that the multiplex theater opened in my town, actually in the city next door, Danbury, Connecticut. It was called Sony Theaters, and I think it had 10 screens. When it opened, I was probably 14 or 15 at the time, prime movie-going age, and it felt like an amusement park. It was enormous. We hadn't seen anything like it. All of a sudden, there was something to do in our town. Imagine that. Going to the movies, it was fun. You could hang out there before the movie. You ran into friends in the lobby. You got unlimited refills on your 32-ounce Coke. The whole place smelled like fresh popcorn. You could buy one ticket and see 2 movies if you wanted to. And I laugh now, but this was new, this was big, and it was into that atmosphere that Titanic came out just a few years later. Today's expression is root for. To root for someone is to hope that person succeeds. The most common way to use this phrase, believe it or not, is with sports. Who were you rooting for in the Super Bowl? I was rooting for Kansas City. I wanted them to win. One of the commenters in our Facebook group was rooting for the Eagles. He wanted Philadelphia to win. He said he's devastated. You can say this in a general sense or in a specific competition. For example, I generally root for the Yankees and the Milwaukee Brewers in baseball. Those are the teams I support in a general, ongoing sense. But when neither team is playing, I'll root for a different team in that game. But it's not just in sports. It can be in life too. In the movie Titanic, Rose is caught between 2 men. Her fiancé is arrogant, possessive, condescending, entitled. Then she meets Jack. Jack is freewheeling, poor, not a refined upper-class gentleman. As viewers, we're rooting for Rose and Jack to be together. We're rooting for Jack. We want Jack to be the one to win Rose's affection. We want Jack to succeed. We want Jack and Rose to succeed, so we're rooting for them. We're not rooting for the fiancé. I don't even remember his name. Now, it's important to use root for when you don't have a say in the outcome. For example, if you're at work and your team is going to hire someone Imagine there are 3 applicants. You have a favorite. You are part of the team making the decision about who to hire. And this is not a case for using root for because you're not a spectator. You are participating in the outcome, so you cannot use root for. But you can use this if you're not a decision maker. Now, we had an intern at my office once, and I thought he did a really good job. He didn't get a job offer from us, but I was rooting for him. I wasn't involved in the decision to hire him or not. And it turned out that he didn't get an offer. And after he left our firm, I was still rooting for him. I wanted him to succeed. And you know what? He went straight to a competitor, got hired, got promoted multiple times, and he has a great career. Well, sometimes you'll know someone. Maybe you don't know them well, but you know someone who's having trouble. Maybe he's having trouble finding a job. Maybe she's struggling with drugs or alcohol, whatever. And you just kind of hear about the person through friends, neighbors, relatives. And you've always liked the person, but you're not really involved in his or her life. And let's pretend you heard good news. The person has had some better luck, got a better job, quit drinking or gambling, got married, whatever. You can say, "Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I was always rooting for her." Or, "I'm glad he got back on track in his career. I was rooting for him to succeed." Time for the song of the week. Did you know, and I misremembered this, but did you know that this song doesn't appear until the closing credits? Oh, I'm talking about Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, just in case there was any doubt about what the song of the week would be today. Now, this song, with the full lyrics, doesn't come on until the closing credits of Titanic. I misremembered that. The way I remembered it, I thought that song was interspersed in the drama, but it isn't. You hear notes of it, but you don't hear the full song, the lyrics, until the movie is over and the credits are rolling. But the melody, the basis of the song, is used throughout the film in the soundtrack, and it actually originated that way. The notes, the melody was part of the soundtrack first, and only later did they make it into a song with lyrics. Well, Titanic had a way of elevating stars, and it elevated Leonardo DiCaprio. It elevated Kate Winslet, but it also really elevated Celine Dion. And it's all the more remarkable because the full song only comes on at the end. My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion is the second best-selling single by a woman of all time, the best-selling single of 1998, and it's considered Celine Dion's signature song. And to add to its many accolades, it's the Plain English Song of the Week for March 9th, 2023. Somebody update Wikipedia. Well, that's all for today. Congratulations on reaching the end of another Plain English lesson. I know you are doing great work out there, and it's such a pleasure and an honor to be part of your English studies each and every week. Remember, the full lesson resources are at plainenglish.com/553. If you're not yet a member of PlainEnglish.com, go check that out. There's a free membership, which is always free and includes transcripts and extra study resources. PlainEnglish.com. Have a great weekend. We will be back here on Monday as always. See you then.